Hello, everyone. This is Stacy. Welcome to the landing. Hello, and welcome back to the landing. We have a special guest with us today. We have Mr. Carroll Hill with us, and he is going to share some of his knowledge and memories with us. Before we get into the meat of our conversation, though, Mr. Carroll, will you tell us a little bit about where you're from, who your crowd is, and all that stuff?
Well, I'm a born and bred Davis shoreman from Davis, North Carolina. Course sounder by birth, ocean, put a lot of ocean time in through the years, but mostly just Davis is heaven.
Davis is heaven. I love it. Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you coming. I know that it's a busy time, and we appreciate you carving out some time for us. And I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I know you and my dad go way back, and he definitely said I need to talk to you and pick your brain a little bit. So my understanding, we're going to jump right in, is that you have a lot of history with fishing. Is that true?
I have about 50 years. That's
That's a little bit.
Yes.
That might give you the right to talk about it. So do you want to start back to when it began? How'd you get into it?
Well, I'm the son of a fisherman's son, basically. So that's three generations I know of. So that's the start of everything. And when I started out with the trawlers, I really started working with my father. And right after I'd done a little stint in college in '61, I guess, and we ended up going to Florida, working Key West, and up and down the coast, and back home in the spring.
Mm-hmm. What kind of fishing were you doing then?
Shrimping, it was all shrimping then, pretty much. My father never did like to do anything but shrimp, so we traveled up and down the coast when I was with him. But we'd come home in May, get ready for the summer, shrimp and stuff. And kind of just went on from them. And later on, a few years later, about 1974, we built a new trawler, a 76-foot trawler that I started working pretty well up and down all the coast from Atlantic City to Mississippi pretty much. So covered a lot of the coast over the years. Wow.
So when you traveled to those areas, was it a particular time of year? How did that work?
When I was up Atlantic City and in Cape May, New Jersey, both were scalloping, offshore sea scallops. And we're running in and out probably a day thing each day. And the shrimping, of course, in Pamlico Sound and in the ocean around the inlet to Beaufort and on this Easter Beach. We've done a lot of shrimping in this area. Down South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. So covered at Key West and done a lot of years down to Key West, about 4 or 5 down there. And maybe lasted January till May, we'd stay down there in the warm climate.
Wow. So when you started with your dad, did you do it willingly, or is it something that it was just understood you were going to do?
No, I done it willingly. I tried 2 or 3 things and just wasn't there. It was in my gut and in my blood. So I ended up doing it I had that trawler for 30-some years. That last one we built.
So what can you tell us? Can you think of any stories that stick out, or maybe a good day, bad day?
We had a lot of those. Had a lot of good ones and a lot of bad ones. But good days. Yeah, most of them was good. Had some real bad ones. Got caught in a snow blizzard up off of Cape May, New Jersey one year in March. 80-mile-an-hour winds, snow blizzard, freezing everything. I was 50, 75 miles offshore. We were like 15 hours making the beach.
Oh, my goodness.
So that was a pretty bad day.
Yeah.
But we survived it, and I had a bunch of friends on other boats around me, so we got through that one. Had several more of those kind of things go through the years, but a lot of pretty days too. Pretty slick weather, nice, good catches. Started out basically first along. I probably went with my mother's daddy, which was another granddaddy. He had a little 35 foot boat there in Corsound, there out of Davis, out the harbor there, Davis or the Cut, they called it then. And a lot of little boats in there, probably had 15, 20 little boats tied in there. And went out with him a bunch when I was a little kid. He and my grandmother would go with him, so that was kind of something unique to think about in the past,
That is
being out
kind of
with them.
neat. Yeah. What kind of fishing would you do with them?
Just shrimping.
Shrimping?
There in the sun, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And
wow.
I remember that well. And we, then I kind of come from that. I started on the trawlers. And in fact, I forgot this too. Me and your daddy one time, I borrowed a skiff from my Uncle Hal, actually. And me and him went pillar crabbing. We were going to get rich. We were in like 10th or 11th grade, something. I think we made $3 or something like that. It wasn't much anyway. And the kicker was you're supposed to break their pinchers when you catch the peelers, because they turn to soft crabs. And if they're trying to work them, if they got their claws, they bite you.
Oh.
So we didn't do that. And they started counting our crabs, and they had crabs hanging everywhere. So that was a good experience, something to remember back in the day.
That's funny. So that explains why you didn't make a living catching pillow crabs.
No, we didn't do real well. No. I think our gas bill was much more than our money.
That's funny. Oh, my goodness. Oh,
But that's the experience of life.
that's right. And that's called learning.
Yep.
That's called learning. Is there any time that while you were doing it, and I think I know the answer, but I want you to expand on it, where you thought about, why am I doing this?
Yeah, it's a lot of those times.
And why? What would bring that
The
about?
spring was always tough. From March on through till maybe June, it was pretty slim for the trawlers. Most of the time you were tied up for a couple of months or so that you didn't do anything, and it could get pretty tough. Money could get real scarce.
Yeah, because if you're not catching anything, you're not making anything.
No.
Yeah.
And that would be a real scarce time for a lot of us anyway. But it always seemed like this. Always come back somewhere along the line. You get back, get on your feet, and keep going. Got able to keep going.
Where does a fisherman dig from that allows them to keep going? Because sometimes, it's
I
scary.
think you got to be real stubborn right to start with.
Mm-hmm.
You don't try not let it doesn't beat you. I think that's a good big part of it.
Yeah.
You can't be a quitter, I'll put it that way.
Right. Well, and that leads me right into my next question. What are some things that you've learned from being a fisherman all your life? What are some things that you've seen transfer over into your life, lessons that you've learned?
I think patience would be one of them. You have a lot of crews that ain't real good, and you had to learn to be patient with them. So that's one thing, Had a lot of real good crews too. I had some excellent crews, but I had some that was probably shady. But anyway, you had to learn to be patient with them. And mistakes, you couldn't just bust a guy open because he had made a little mistake or something. You had to be patient about things like that. And sometimes you're real tense and it's hard to be patient.
Right.
In some things going on.
Yeah. Well, in some of those situations, I would imagine it's dangerous. I mean, if these mistakes.
There's things that can kill you in an instant, especially on the big trawlers. Everything's so heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, you're working with stuff that weighs 1,000 pounds, and we're trying to move it and get away from it or whatever. It's could be real dangerous.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I never had no bad injuries except to myself. I did have a boy cut his finger off by his own foolishness. Or actually, it was a cousin of mine.
Oh, me.
I got my hand tore up one time. I busted it open, had a The whole top of it ripped out.
Oh my goodness.
Healed back pretty though.
It sure did. Come on, tell it. What happened? How did that happen?
Had a line bust, a big line, about 1.25 inch line, broke. Come back, flew back with nylon, but the elasticity flew back and hit me top of the hand.
It just ripped it.
Ripped it open.
Oh my goodness gracious. Ugh. So think back. If you were talking to a young person now that wants to fish, wants to be in the fishing industry, any advice?
I'd hate to recommend it, I'd put it that way.
Okay, and why?
Just because what has happened over the last 10 or 15 years, the restrictions and regulations, the shrimp industry now is being overpowered by the imports. There's a bunch of nice sized shrimp they can't even sell, they won't buy, and all this adding up, it's just so many things against it that it's hard to make a living with your family. You got to have a lot of resourcefulness, I guess is a word, to even think about making it. Like some guys doing good at it, but they're peddling their own shrimp and stuff like that, and there's only a certain amount of market in the area, so.
Yeah. Speaking of that, then peddling their own shrimp, that's the part that has changed dramatically too. I mean, the fish houses and like how that worked. Can you talk a little bit about how it used to be so folks can know?
Well, when I was growing up in Davis, there were, about 7 fish houses on Davis.
Really?
Now there's none.
Wow.
There's not one left, and I think Arkansas's the same way.
Arkansas the same way?
I think the Willie Sky up here is probably the only one that has any volume power at all.
Yeah. So how did that work? Explain to our listeners like how it used to work, because they don't know, because it's not
older
that
people started dying, and people come in and started buying the waterfront.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just basically the waterfront's been taken over by homes and stuff.
Right.
And where the ferry is to Davis, I don't know where you ever been there or not.
Yeah.
There were 3 fish houses there.
You would explain it to us, like you would go out and fish and then come in, and what would happen? What was the process?
Most of the course it would be overnight fishing, back in the next morning and get ready to be shrimp or whatever you were doing. Mm-hmm. Going there was Grady Davis's, T.B. Smith, Manly Murphy had the fish houses. Then later on, T.B. sold his, or he held on it. Then he moved to Beaufort and had a place down. I know where you know where the Gary Smith, and know where you know them or not. Their daddy.
Okay.
Very good man.
Yes.
Very good man. Of course, Gary and Philip then were very good people too. So real close to them. Yeah. And Grady had his place in Manly. He sold his. I don't know when he sold his, but Grady sold his to Mac. Grady George, Grady's son, old man Grady's son, sold his to Mac Best, and he put the ferry there.
Yeah. The
fish house, it was TB's, is still there. I think the big white building there on the side is where his fish house was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So y'all would come and they would pay you for your catch.
They probably pay on the weekend. You never got paid daily, but you got paid on the weekends. Friday probably was payday.
Mm-hmm. And when you fish, was it a daily thing? Like you'd go out, come back in? I know with you traveling, that was a little different, but.
Yeah, in Core Sound, basically they overnight or Monday or whatever. Very little. Out in Pamlico Sound, it was different because you icy shrimp stay 4 or 5 days.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
And then come in, most people.
Yeah.
Some of the smaller boats come in midweek. Us bigger boats wouldn't come in probably till Friday. Leave Sunday and come back Friday.
Wow.
So it was a long week.
Wow. So
when it was nonstop, you didn't cut your engine off all week.
That's what I was going to stop. So you were constantly going.
Yes.
And just take turns. Some sleep, some work. And switch.
Most of the time you try to get what sleep you could. I was on duty most of the time, so probably a lot of my days are 20 hours.
Wow. Gracious.
Some almost longer than that, but that's pretty long too.
That's pretty long. Yeah. Okay, here's a question I have for you. What did you eat?
Oh, we had it lasted long. I had a generator, refrigerator, freezer, had electric stoves and air conditioning, the whole good thing. But
oh, wow.
On the boat then,
you had it made.
That was a lot different when it was 100 degrees in Pamlico Sound and had to try to ventilate through a little side window, and you were head to the wind.
Oh,
wind, didn't get anything.
Yeah. So what would a meal be? Just a square nab?
Well, we had a regular breakfast. You have eggs, bacon, ham, whatever. I mean, whatever you could get. And you have sandwiches in midday probably. And in the night we'd have pretty decent meals. Have pork chops, hamburgers, and roast once in a while. Roast
So-
was easy. You throw them in the oven. We don't bite your business, but it was and they had some good cooks that cooked. I cooked a little bit, but I had some really good cooks, so
Yeah.
that was good.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. Sleeping situation. Do you have bunks?
Yeah, my big boat had 4 bunks. The Sea Pal, the boat I was on, trawler I was on first, she only had 3. I had 3 in crew, and as high as I had 5 crew with me at one time. When I was up sea Scotland, had 5 guys with me.
Okay, so you have you've mentioned scalloping and you've mentioned trawling and just real in basic terms. Tell us a little bit about, because I know each industry, each time you have to do a certain thing, you have different equipment, different techniques. So take us through just a little bit.
Well, when I started out, the first I remember was just one net to the little boats it was dragging. Then when we went to the bigger boats, when I started on the Sea Pal, she only had one trawl. Then they moved up to 2. And when I quit, we were doing 4.
Wow.
So they were smaller. Each time they were basically the same thing, but they produced a lot better that way.
And why? Why did the 4?
I don't really have an explanation for it unless it was you really got more spread out the 4 nets than you did the 2 nets.
Yeah, that would make sense. Huh. Wow. So when you're trawling, you're bringing it. Explain how that works. I know what a trawler looks like and all that, but explain it.
Well, you have a winch and it's full of steel cable that hooks to your trawl boards, which is used to make your net go apart. There are wooden doors and they got their set at angles, and when you drop them, they go apart.
They kind of fan out.
They go away from each other, which pulls the net apart. And you just, most of your drags are a couple, 3 hours sometimes of shrimping. And that was kind of average 3 hours probably. In Pamlico Sound, I'm thinking, but even in the ocean too. But then we fished a lot too. We've done a lot of fishing along the beaches and up north, on up to the Virginia line actually.
What kind of fish?
Well, we caught trout. Earlier was catching trout and croakers, flounder. In the springtime, the croakers would run. They'd go out the beach from Hatteras on up towards Virginia. And we chase him at the beach.
Chase him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had some pretty big drags and pretty big catches.
That has to be exhilarating, like to pull up
Oh,
and
yeah.
you've got. Can you tell us a story? Can you remember a time when you had a good one?
Oh, yeah. I remember towing through some croaker schools that were, while we were still dragging it with floating net in probably 80, 90 foot of water.
No way.
You look behind you and see the net floating out with the fish.
You had to be grinning when you were seeing that.
Oh,
happen.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It would make you feel good.
Oh, my goodness, yes. Now, scalloping, how does that work?
Well, it's basically the same way we did it. I know the bigger boats nowadays is cutting the meat on the boat. They use dredges, steel dredges and stuff, but we use a net most of the time. And most of it I did was down in Florida. Did some here off of Cape Lookout, some calico scallops. They're sort of like a bay scallop, basically. But I did some of that in the 60s. And in the late 80s and the early 90s, there was another little run on out here. I had been to Florida scalloping, and I decided to come home and stay. It got pretty slim, and decided to go over and just see if there's anything where we used to catch them. And I was lucky enough to find a big school, a big pile. And it's kind of a little story behind that. I came in with a load, had the guy that I was selling to in Florida had set it up to get rid of them for me, to take the product. And when I came in the bar, there was a marine fisheries man, and the red tide was going on. I don't know if you ever heard of the red tide.
That was I was young,
time.
but yeah.
Anyway, that was going on, and he closed scalloping inside. But I was 12, 15 miles offshore outside state boundaries. Because I didn't think nothing about it to start with. And I came on in, and I came in Dr. Gary Smith's fish house, and he had a rig to unload us and put them on truck. And I went on home. I'd been up 48 hours or something.
Oh my goodness.
And I came in. The time I got in the house, he called me. He said, "We got a problem." I went down there, about 5 fish commissioners on the boat. And I got rode up. And
Really?
yeah, and they confiscated the scallops, and they let us open them. That was one good thing. They let us open them. And the guy that I was selling to, he gave me a bunch of money for them anyway. Because he was the Indy one that bought them.
Right. So you did sell them. You were able to salvage.
Well, and I went to court with it. And John Gainey from Moorhead, Beaufort, Wheatman, Beam Game. He had my case, and the guy that was the fish commissioner that was doing the judge throwed it out. So I got all my money back.
Oh,
Got the catch back and all my money. So
that's one of the few good endings.
Yeah.
So even though you caught them outside, it's still.
I couldn't land them. What I said, they wasn't supposed to land them.
Oh.
That was the catch, I guess.
Okay.
But that was one that gets you a little hot in the face.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure you can smile now, but I'm sure at the time it wasn't a good thing. Wow. It seems like all the time you have to go with the flow. I mean, that's something a fisherman has to learn too.
Yeah.
It's just kind of go with it.
Well, you learn the seasons. They come every year basically the same, so that's the way you go. And my fishing up north, I packed up in Wanchese for most of the time, sold my stuff up there. I had worked with a bunch of real good friends up there. In fact, I lost one of them about a year ago, an older man. So I thought a lot of. And his sons, both of them, real good friends. So yeah, we stay in contact all the time now.
So when you are out there, can you think back to the time when you were the captain, you're like new on it, and you look out and you realize this is your responsibility. How was that?
Well, it's just something you do. I don't know. I've thought about it anyway other than being captain. So you're the boss, and what you say is got to go. Yeah. Unless somebody can change my mind.
Is that part of that stubbornness, you think?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, sometimes they think they know more than what they do. Be it they did. Of course, they probably know more now than I do. But a lot of them was young.
I don't know about that. Yeah. So what is your favorite type of fishing that you've done? If you had to pick.
Fly netting, probably.
Fly netting?
Yeah, it's basically what a net we used. It was imported actually from Scotland. They called it a Scottish seine to start with. And it got adapted different ways after it got here and made into different things. We used those over big net. They weren't that big net. They were 90 foot long. And for a trawler, I mean, it's not a big net. But
yeah.
The big doors had a real long body in it where the fish you could pile up a 15,000 pound, like 12,000, 1,500 pound.
Whoa. And where did you use those kinds of nets?
All over from down this way on up to the Virginia line. That's what we used mostly in the last 15 years I had the boat, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Has the equipment changed a lot from what you used to use? Oh, yeah?
I started out, we didn't have LORANs. We had a compass and a chart, and that's what you did. You learned to use the chart and use the compass. You had a ship shore radio, and that was basically it. It had a depth recorder. We'd had a bit depth recorder. But they were weak. They weren't very good fish finders, and just about had to smell them sometimes.
You had to smell them. You had to use your brain, your noggin, didn't you, and figure it out. Yeah.
Our first LORAN was the old aircraft LORAN from the World War II.
I bet that was a big deal when you got that, wasn't it?
And you only get one bearing off it. And we had a radar at that time. We got a radar. So you'd had to get a distance from the beach and the LORAN bearing to get somewhat of a position where you were at. And it could be a mile, 2 miles off what you thought it was.
Wow. Just a mile or 2 miles.
Yeah, but now GPS has put it to a 20-foot area.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of difference.
That's a huge difference. How about the nets, all that kind of stuff? How has that changed?
They've changed quite a bit. And especially the fishing type things, the fly nets and stuff are so much better than what we had originally. The catches we made with originally with a fly net, we'd have loaded the boat in just an instant. And now you'd had to make 2 or 3 tows to do it with
Oh, wow.
the old nets.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the scalloping stayed about the same. I mean, the nets and stuff didn't change much.
Yeah. So that's still very similar.
Yeah. And the shrimping changed a lot. They went, when the green-tailed shrimp showed back up here and down south, they started using, well, they come out the Gulf, actually, the nets did tongue nets, they called them. And they would go up higher in the water, and the green-tailed shrimps tend to stay higher in the water. So,
Oh, really?
made it much more productive.
Well, is there a story or anything that you would like to share that we haven't covered?
Too many of them, I think, just know where to start. But a lot of good stories, a lot of good times, some bad times, more good than bad.
More good than bad. Well, that's all we can ask for, right?
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you coming. I really do. And I appreciate you sharing your life with us.
I'm glad to have the opportunity to share what little bit of information I have. So
Who knows? We might ask you back again. Get you and Daddy here together. That would be a time.
well, we probably don't need to talk about some things. But anyway, that's history.
That's history. That's
He was best ushering my wedding, and I was ushering his wedding.
Yes, I do know that. I do know that. I know a few things about you. We'll talk
So
about it
I hope
later.
they're good.
They were all good. Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much. It's been very interesting
Yeah,
to.
your dad's always been a friend. He's a special person.
Well, he loves you very much.
I do him.
Well, thank you, and until next time, be good, behave.
I try to. She makes it hard.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, thanks. I enjoyed doing it.
Thank you.
How fun was that? What a great start to October. I have heard stories about Mr. Carroll all my life, so to be able to sit down with him and get to know him a little better was an honor. I can certainly understand why my dad loves him so much. His years fishing along the coast have crafted a very humble and grateful man. Please join us next week for another wonderful conversation, this time with Mr. Bobo Martin, the pirate himself. Until then, stay safe and be kind.